Good evening. It's been a while since I've done one of these, so apologies in advance if anything should go wrong. I hope it won't, but one never knows. So I want to put that caveat out there straight up front. I thought I would do a couple of things with this. So first of all, didn't have a session this week in my game. But we did have that session last week that I hadn't done a recap of, so I thought I would spend the first part of this, might as well going through the recap, and then we could take it from there. I have everything in my game is in World Anvil. If you haven't seen World Anvil, you will probably, you'll be able to see it because I will probably do some noodling around in World Anvil. I'm still really getting used to it. It has a lot. It almost feels a little bit overkill in a sense for my purposes, but it's something that could definitely grow with you as a GM or player, but presumably as a GM, because there's a lot of tools, a lot of I guess prompts, if you will, spaces to enter stuff. I find it can actually be a bit intimidating because it has so much stuff, but we'll get into that. But for now, let's go. Let me go through and go ahead and give you the recap. Session 7 is in the books. I called it, for the recap, I called it a walk in the woods because it did feature a fair amount of woods walking, as it were. If you had seen the earlier recaps, you might remember that they had ended that session kind of hunkered down in a little sort of hilly area, hiding from these gnoll-type creatures who were sniffing about looking for someone or something, and they feared that that someone or something might be them. Cut to this session, and they started out with a lot of conversing about what to do about this. They seem to be torn between jumping up and trying to get the drop on these things and ambushing them, or sitting tight. One of the things that I try to do, especially with this game, it's a new game, it's new players. We're not playing in person, we're playing over Discord. And I always feel like when you have those kind of barriers, sometimes you can lose some of the nuance. You're not necessarily getting all of the communication. So in this case, one of the players, I only have two players, one of the players was kind of fixated on this idea that they were going to sniff them out. So I think I had the gnolls say something along the lines of, like, we had their scent or something, which they did, but they're going to sniff us out. So, but the way he was going about it, he really had this impression like it was just inevitable that they were found. So I kind of broke it down. I said, look, they have this sniffing it out, but clearly they haven't found you because the snippets of conversation you have is they are looking. It's not a situation where they have a beeline on their position. They're like, haha, we smell them. They're right over there. Let's go. Because they've been hearing the bits of conversation. I wasn't trying to really dissuade them from attacking the gnolls. It would have been a very tough fight had they done it. Had they attempted it, because I think there were 8 or 9 of the gnolls. And as I mentioned in the past, even though we only have a party of 2, I'm not holding back necessarily when I'm rolling random encounters and things. I'm just using the numbers as they come, and I'm really leaving it up to them to decide based on their numerical deficiency. Right? There's only 2 of them. When they have the elemental, so they can summon one, or Grusty can summon one. They might have 3 people, but they don't have any hirelings or anything like that, so it's mostly 2 or 2 plus 1. They're going to have to make those decisions as to what they do. I'm not going to push them and say you got to go to this specialized content for 2-player parties. I'm just going with it, and I think hopefully they're putting themselves, and they have been so far, in spots where they're not dealing with things where they're way over their heads and they're not making rash decisions, and they understand there's only 2 of them, and I think they also understand too that I'm not scaling everything back for 2. The world is the way the world is, and they're a duo, which will make their feats, whatever they succeed at, all the more heroic. And maybe if they do fail, it's what could happen when you're 2 against the world, right? So in this case, I wanted to let them know that it wasn't a foregone conclusion, not just based on me telling them, hey, it's not a foregone conclusion, but based on the information they had in hand, that these things are around. They've kind of honed into this area a bit, but they don't know exactly where you are. So don't, if you're playing this within your head that you're thinking that oh, they know where we are, then I just wanted to make sure that that was corrected. Hi, Betty. I like to do this. I think it's something that's nice, but I think it's also there's a part of me that, you know, you want to say, okay, well, the players have their information. If they want to make the wrong conclusion to a set of information or data or clues, whatever, they should be allowed to. And I totally agree with that. But there are also times like this where I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with the information. And I don't mind, in real life, yes, there's nobody there to make sure that you understand correctly. But, of course, I'm just paraphrasing what they're hearing. You know, all these things were you know, a little bit removed from being, if we were in some kind of VR simulation of the moment, right? We would expect to have a lot more information. So since we're really talking about kind of the highlights, I feel like it's not a bad idea to make sure you're on an even keel of understanding. That way, when something happens and you start running with the consequences of that, there's no weird surprise where the player thinks that they were kind of over here and you're thinking they were over there. So with that new information, they smartly decided, oh, well, let's hunker down. Let's not pop up. Which was smart, because one of the other things that came up, and it actually came up right afterwards, is I like to roll for random weather, but I'd kind of forgotten. So I kind of had rolled some random weather before the game began to see, I'll figure, well, they're outside, we'll see how the weather's turning. And I happened to come up with a light rain. So at that moment, they're hunkered down. These things are kind of searching around for it, and they're in this tense spot, and then it starts to rain. And the rain, I just role played that the gnolls weren't particularly interested in the rain. It kind of, they didn't really want to be in it. And it definitely dampened their... I'd already rolled that they weren't going to find them. You know, I'd made that check. So this was really more about just in the fiction what might have happened. So using the rain, using the fact that they missed this roll to find them, that becomes... They're annoyed at the rain. They don't like it. They kind of give some disgusting howls and yips of disgust, and they quickly move on to try to get shelter. So they're saved. After they leave, the rain passes. Grusty decides to summon another elemental. His elemental that he had positioned before, I had made a roll, and what I have going with this ability is basically every day, I basically make a reaction roll. And if the elemental's in good humor and everything, they might stick around, but there's always a chance that they're going to bail out. And I've been kind of modifying it by if they had great reactions before, that will kind of hold over, but at the same time, the longer they're around, they're kind of, you know, they want to go back. They're not here of their own will. So their reaction slowly turns sour, and then they leave. Well, I think I rolled a 3 or something. So the elemental, they had summoned left. And so now Grusty summoned another one. He didn't try to summon as big a one. I think the other one he summoned was, I think, a 4 HD elemental. This one's a 2 HD elemental, so smaller, but still 2 HD at this point is stronger than either, you know, it's stronger than either of the two players themselves, so it is still a bonus. It's also, you know, third hand, which is good. I also decided that if they wanted to make sure that the elemental stuck around, they could basically take the dice they'd use to spend it, because everything's on this hero dice concept, which I may have mentioned before. I'm doing kind of a custom thing with the classes, so all their abilities are centered around hero dice. They have a certain amount of dice. They can risk them, and they can spend them. When you summon an elemental and it succeeds, whatever dice you risked just gets spent. So he had rolled 4, which was all the dice he has at first level, so he had spent 4. But what I said was that, look, if you get in a situation where you really, really want to keep that elemental around, and John says hi, hey Pex, aka John Barnhouse. If you really want to keep it around, you can forego getting those dice back, and you can basically keep those dice invested in the creature. The idea being that you are somewhat giving some of your power to this creature to kind of bind them to you, bind them to this plane. And overnight, when you sleep and you're getting that energy back, it also means that the energy that's keeping the elemental there kind of wanes, and that's when you're rolling to see if the elemental kind of feels like sticking around. If they've they've bonded to you to the degree of sticking. So I thought it was kind of neat that you could say, no, I'm not going to take that power back. I'm going to keep that power invested in holding the elemental there, which they wouldn't necessarily like, but if you really want to make sure it was there, you could keep it. I also have the rule that you have to have firelight to get warmth, to kind of get healing when you're in a camping situation. And so since they had, since they had gone without fire, I ruled that they didn't get any dice back. So they're in a situation where they're already Grusty's out of spells. He's out of hero dice. But they get up in the morning. The rain has stopped. They're soaked, but they're, otherwise they're well. They were both able to sleep because the elemental took guard. The elemental doesn't sleep, so they were able to use that so they could both get their Z's. They get up, decide, okay, now we're going to keep going. We're going to go into the woods. In the woods they go, and I narrated that this path goes in the woods, and the where it goes in, the branches of the trees kind of form sort of a natural archway, and I just kind of off the cuff, just thinking in my brain, I was thinking, kind of, I didn't even one of the players ended up mentioning Blair Witch, because I was thinking of these kind of wicker figures, little stick figures. I really was thinking more True Detective Season 1, those kind of little figures that they were finding. And I guess that's also, I've really never seen Blair Witch. I'll just admit that, or I may have seen bits of it. I think I actually might have seen it, but forever ago. I don't really have much memory of it. Kind of stick figures, these sort of figures made of branches and twigs and things in there. Some of them are hanging from the branches from the arch. Some of them are kind of wrapped to the tree. I want to give it this look. The player, Grusty's player, says, ooh, it feels like it's getting very, elven. And that actually caused really a whole shift in what I was going, because originally I was just thinking there's just going to be some woods, and there's going to be this lady that they're looking for, the soothsayer, was just going to be a lady in the woods, maybe a witch, maybe not, I don't know, somebody with some kind of mystical ability. But as soon as he said that, it really just turned everything, and I thought, why didn't I think of this before? This is kind of Arthurian theme that we're working in, that they had requested, that this should really be like a fae thing. This really should be an elven kind of fairy fae space. And I think I actually said fae as opposed to elven. So I thought, yeah, this is great. This path will lead into my version of the Feywild, which I think I call the Endless Wild, or the Great. I think I'm going back and forth on names, but they haven't heard it yet, so I don't have to keep it in stone. So that just totally kind of flipped my brain as far as where they were going. So yeah, so now instead of them just entering this woods, they're entering the kind of fairy, the lands of the fairy lands, this Endless Wild, I think is what the name I have right now. The path kind of just fades out into this, into the floor of this wood, and they find kind of, I was going for sort of a green man motif. So you get this sort of bearded male face, but they're not sure whether it's just I forget the name for a natural occurrence that looks like, it looks like a person. You want to personify it, but I know there's a name for it. I can't remember it. They see this thing. They don't have detect magic. So they don't detect magic. They do kind of poke it with a stick. Nothing happens. I realized I kind of made a mistake here, because I really didn't lay out many clues for what I wanted them to do. And part of that was by design. I wanted this wood to be mysterious, particularly now that I'm saying, okay, we're in the kind of the fairy lands. I definitely wanted that kind of mystery to be there. And I also wanted them to start using, I want them to start thinking about, well, there's not always going to be a straight path to places. So how do you decide where to go? How do you decide what to do? This might have been a little bit too early, and I probably could have done a better job of giving them more. Just giving them more data. I didn't have a lot of data to give them, and that's probably my fault, because I really wasn't thinking about this part of the trip, number one. And then number two, it really changed. The whole character of the whole thing changed right there. Right. So I had this great idea. I ran with it, but it did kind of lead me off the path of sort of what I was doing. And I realized as it was happening, like, I'm really not giving them much, but I couldn't really think of what to give them, because I didn't just want to give them this straight trail. I wanted them to kind of feel a little bit of the mystery, to explore a little bit. I want them to go, but at the same time, even though I want them to do these things, you still need to give them ideas where to go. And when you're in the middle of a wood, in this case, there's just the exit, and there's just trees. And I didn't have anything to differentiate the trees. I really hadn't thought about it too much. That was kind of an error on my part. However, they kind of took that green man face as a sort of a signpost, so to speak. So they kind of aligned themselves, marched past the green man. They put the elemental in front, and then walking in. So in a way that sort of dealt with itself. The problem that came up, and I wasn't sure what to do about this, is they were basically scouting with the elemental in front. And I several times I kind of reiterated to them that the elemental, you just gave it a direction, it's going. It's not checking the grounds. It's not looking for signs. You say, okay, we're going northeast or whatever. Follow my arm, and, where I'm pointing, and the elemental just goes. And if there's an obstacle, it just boop, boop, goes around, keeps going. So I wanted to impress upon them that it's not doing any scouting for them. They could be passing by clue after clue after clue. If they're not, the two of them are not checking them out or coming up with things to do, the elemental's not. It's just marching to it. One direction is as good as another, or standing still. It really doesn't care, so it's marching. But during this march, I was able to impress upon them how the wood is transforming from where they entered it, where it was mostly a normal seeming wood, to really being supernatural. It was just very, I mentioned how the ground seems very clean. There's no decay. Everything seems to be just vibrant and just full of life in a way that it's too much. When you go into, here I'm in the country right now, and there's woods around me, and the woods, you see tons of fallen logs and branches. And yes, there's full of green and life, but it's also kind of competing with decay and things that are dying, and there's a whole interplay, right? That's life. Here, though, that decay and dying part is totally absent. It's all live, it's all vibrant, it's all super just green and whatever, to the point where it feels unnatural to you. It doesn't seem right. And they, of course, got that hint, and I think it was good to kind of give them this, look, you've passed this threshold now. You started off in this the normal world that you're in. Now you're in this fairy world, and you don't maybe not know it's a fairy world yet, but you know that it's definitely, you're not in Kansas anymore. You know that much. But they're still moving. But I think they sense what I was trying to communicate to them was there was just kind of an aimlessness to the way they were traveling, because again, they're just following the elemental. The elemental doesn't care unless it reaches a wall, and maybe it would just blow through the wall if it could. It's just going to keep marching. So Grusty finally goes, hey, let me try to find some other kind of landmark. Well, he doesn't say that, but he says, like, hey, is there a water source? Is there water around? So I have him roll, and sure enough, he hears the tinkling of a stream. And this was great for me, because I didn't really know what to do with them. Either I was just going to have to put something in front of them, which I don't like to do. It just seems like, because it just seems really obvious. Oh, I'm putting something in front of you. And I kind of like the world to feel alive, which means, look, sometimes you're going to walk in the woods and you may not see anything for miles, and that's the woods, right? But having rolled and having determined, okay, there's a stream here, it allowed me to kind of change things up a little bit while not seeming to be just turning them where I wanted to. They went to the stream, and the stream then is able to reveal some things that they didn't run into themselves. Now, granted, I could have put the stream in front of them. I could have had them cross the stream. I could have done something else, but I really wanted them to kind of take the initiative on it, and they did. And it didn't take a long time. I don't know if the way I'm making it sound makes it seem like they were just forever marching. It wasn't. We only played for maybe an hour, so all this is actually fairly condensed. All my sessions right now, unfortunately, are just kind of short. Not by design, just by circumstances. So they find the stream, and they look up, and the stream's kind of, they realize they're kind of going in sort of a subtly uphill direction, so their eyes follow the way the stream is kind of going up this little, I talked about kind of there being a little, just a little dip, a little rocky, I want to say ravine, but not a ravine, obviously, very small, shallow. Let's see, I have my notes here. I could always look at my notes. What did I call it in my notes? A gully. Thank you. Thank you, earlier self who wrote that down. A gully. They follow the gully, they follow their eyes up, and they see where there's this bridge crossing the gully. And the bridge gave me an opportunity to really throw in more of, hey, you're not in Kansas anymore. Because the way I described this bridge was that out of the sides of the ground, so you picture there's a gully, it's kind of rock strewn, there's a little burbling, little stream, out of the sides of the ground, roots are coming out, and the roots entwine and gather together and twist, and it forms a platform. I thought it was a cool image. Certainly something that is not man-made, right? It's not natural. I think everyone can know that roots aren't going to do that naturally, create a solid bridge like that. So clearly we have extraordinary forces at work. Whether they took that to understand that this is part of being just in the fairyland, or whether they thought that this witch woman did it herself, I'm not sure. They didn't really mention much, but of course they beeline for this bridge, which is great because it gave me kind of everything that I wanted to do. It gave me a way to kind of give them more information without it, while it's still the result of their actions. This is all really up to what they did. And I didn't have all this mapped out, so I'm kind of rolling this out as they're going. So, of course, the bridge, there's a path that goes from one side of the bridge, the side of the gully that they were on, and it crosses over. Volume's a little low. Let me see. I can do that. Let's see. Let me know if that's any better. I got headphones. Hold on a minute. Let's see if I can hear myself on my headphones. It sounds really loud to me, but I'll pump it up a little more. All right. Let me know if that's better. Let me just type a note here. Okay. Much better. Good. All right. I'm going to take my headphones off right now. So they're on the bridge. They decide to cross over and check out the other side. And we were nearing the end of the session. And like all GMs, you want to end on a good note. So I was kind of looking for somewhere good to end it. And I hadn't planned for this to be kind of a fairy space. Originally just going to be a regular wood, but I was in this new space. So I was trying to come up with, what do I want new? I wasn't ready for them to find the witch woman yet, who now is probably going to be some kind of fairy creature of some sort. I haven't decided what yet. So I just had in my brain these little wicker figurines. So I just said, what the heck? Let's go Wicker Man. So they enter this clearing, and they see a giant Wicker Man. And I think I threw in the chat a picture of, not from the movie The Wicker Man, but there was some kind of lithograph or some sort of black and white, I don't know if it was a ink or some kind of a Wicker Man illustration I threw out there. And I don't think either one of them has seen the Wicker Man, either the original good Wicker Man or the horrible Nick Cage Wicker Man. But either way, so I was able to describe, they enter this clearing, and they see this giant, creature made of all the branches. And I one of the things that let me tie together is all the bracken I mentioned, all the dead logs, and all this stuff was missing from the forest itself. So I sort of intimated, though I'm not sure if that's really what happened yet, but that all that stuff was gathered into this giant wicker creation. And then I ended this session with, they hear a voice from inside the Wicker Man, saying to help them. And then I was able to drop the curtain and end the game session. So I was really happy with it. It's always nice to be able to, give him something to think about. Yet another session. We didn't really get any combat, but it really might have, and John says, Nick Cage is my spirit animal. I don't even know what to say to that. That's either a very powerful or a very weak spirit animal, depending. And I like some Nick Cage movies, by the way. The Knowing. Anybody in for The Knowing? I actually really enjoy The Knowing, but that Wicker Man's tough. I don't recommend it. And I'm dating myself, but I can't remember his name. But he was originally on TV as the Equalizer from the 80s, but he was in with Christopher Lee, the great Christopher Lee, in a Wicker Man movie from the early 70s called The Wicker Man. I think what was his name? No, I don't want to start trying to think of his names. I'll get sidetracked. But it's very good. I think I think there's a girl who was a Bond girl is in that too, like Britt Eklund or somebody. I don't remember. Anyhow, cool movie. It's, in that 70s kind of horror sort of genre. But a lot of fun. So I got to leave them with that. And they haven't seen that movie, so I don't know what they think The Wicker Man. And I'm not sure it's going to be like The Wicker Man the movies. And I'm not going to spoil to say, I know the movie's like 50 years old, but I won't spoil what the Wicker Man movie is about or how that ends. But I'm not sure if I'm going to go that same route. I'm curious what they're going to do. So this was a really big session in some ways. It doesn't seem like we got a whole lot. They haven't gotten their destination yet. They dodged one encounter, rightfully so. They wandered around a wood. But things have kind of been turned on their head a little bit. So we're able to dig a lot more into these parts of the world that I hadn't thought they would get into. And frankly, part of that is just because, and I've always mentioned this before, and I'm not the only one, you know, how players have the best ideas. And the player goes, oh, this seems really kind of fairy-like. And I'm like, yeah, it always was. It totally was my idea. Yes, I always meant it to be fairy. That's exactly what it is. Oh, and I just had Britt Eklund confirmed. Wow, I can't believe I got that right. So you get to kind of take credit or think like, oh yeah, of course, you were a very perceptive player. It was always the fairy. That was always my plan. When, of course, it was not my plan, but as soon as he said it, it just makes perfect sense. Now, I don't know what's going to happen here. Them being, they're only first level, them being in this kind of fairy place, it's not good for their health, depending on what happens, but they're going to get to do a lot of talking. And these elves and what's around here aren't going to be just firing, attacking them, depending on what they do. They seem to play it pretty close to the vest as far as they're not the kind of players that so far, anyway, have just been see somebody just draw swords and attack, which will serve them well because this is not a situation in which you want to draw swords and attack. So I'm excited to see what they do. I have no idea how this Wicker Man fits in with the this soothsayer, this kind of seer woman that they are trying to find. Maybe it's her in the Wicker Man. Maybe she put someone in the Wicker Man. It kind of makes sense. I'd already mentioned that she's someone you don't want to mess with, so maybe the last person that messed with her is inside that Wicker Man, which makes a lot of sense, and then allows me to kind of demonstrate her power without having to use it on somebody. That's always good. I know that oftentimes GMs are looking for, well, I want to demonstrate that my big bad evil guy is big and bad and evil. What can I do to the players? And I said before, well, you don't have to do it to the players, but have them do it to somebody that the players respect or they know. I think there's a TV trope called the Worf effect, in which they would introduce a new Worf, the character, the Klingon or half Klingon character from Star Trek Next Generation. If they were ever introducing a new bad guy who they wanted to show as being formidable, what would they do? They would beat up on Worf. Because then Worf was seen as being tough and big, so if somebody beats up on Worf, that automatically raises their profile as they must be tough, they must be big, they must be bad. So you could find in your game, find a Worf. Now, they don't know this person, but they're level 1. They're only one step above a commoner. So even if it's a commoner that's now in this Wicker Man, and it might be maybe I'll make them a little bit of a higher level, PC type individual. Them being in there and in this kind of structure could give them a little taste of what this person's powers are. But I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet. But it was a lot of fun, and I was really disappointed that we had scheduled actually for yesterday to play. But then that didn't happen. And now I'm not sure if we're going to get a game in this week. Yeah, the schedules are crazy. COVID actually hasn't helped schedules as much as you might have thought. At least in my case, hasn't helped my schedule and it hasn't helped the people I'm playing with. So that's where it is. But that was the session, which, like I said, really happy about. Really great. And I'm really interested in what they're going to do. Let's see, just to check in here. Players, John says, players are fantastic resources for brilliant ideas. They just don't know. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They definitely are. They don't know it, but they are. I'm switching. Haha. I have gone to the small screen. So I have the other part I was going to do is just going to kind of noodle around. And maybe this will serve if you're interested or intrigued by World Anvil. You can see what World Anvil is like. That's my session report. Something weird is going on because here's where I can edit it. But when I go back, I was going to bring it up before with viewing it, and it's giving me a 404. So I don't know why it's doing that. So there might be a quirk in the World Anvil system at the moment. But I figured I would go through this, and I got to add some stuff in. Maybe I'll do that here. Maybe I'll just kind of run through it. Like I said, I don't know what people have seen of this, but I have to do, yeah, World Anvil hype. So here's the dashboard that, let's see, I'll dismiss that tip. Campaign stream. Yeah, some reason it's not, doesn't seem to be in order. Okay, so here's this dashboard. There's a lot going on here. The public page looks like this. No great shakes. I think I have the ability to go in and mess with this more, but I haven't yet because there's just a lot. There's a lot going on. So here we come. I clicked on this dashboard, took me here. I've got, you've just got all these articles and things you could make. It really is a ton of different things. So I already showed we've got these session reports. It does say it's published. Okay, there it is. So there's the session report. I don't know why it didn't give me that before, but maybe a URL got messed up. I go back to the dashboard. Let's see. I haven't been. One of the things I need to get better at is actually filling in a lot of stuff, which I certainly need to now, especially as things are taking a turn. But if I go to articles, so you see it's got the sessions over here. Anwin was this person that they had. Oh, see, that's the other thing. I'm also not that. Let's see, what do I want to do? Okay, view the article. So I just have a little blurb for this guy in here. I find that I'm gonna have to go through and maybe do a better job of writing out more details. Because you can see here, I just have the merest, slightest sketch for Anwin the barber surgeon, who they were delivering a message for before they got sidetracked to go find this soothsayer lady. Let me go see what you could see what his article actually looks like. Like I said, they give a bunch of stuff. Let's see, where do I need to go? Edit article. So here you can see the interface, and there is a lot. So we've got this content. We've got, you can put stuff in the sidebar. We could set up relationships. I could add an image header for the for his article. I can add different navigational options. Here's some preferences. I can, if I wanted to, add some different access for different people to see it. You can do that. You can add secrets. So just going back to the content section, there is, you got this big space, and here are these which I had hidden, but they have all these fields. And I think I don't know if I hit it or did it by default, but man, look at that. There's just generic, then there's the naming, then there's mental, physical, personal, social, divine, deity. I mean, there's a lot. I think if you're somebody who loves to world build, this is, I don't think you can really ask for better than this. And the reason why I say this is, look, you could just have an empty piece of paper, or virtual piece of paper, right? An empty word processing screen, or regular paper. But this gives you some structure, and I think they actually have some kind of method to their madness as far as these things, and some of these mental. And again, see, it's not even one mental field. I mean, here's their personal history, education, employment, comment. It's like their whole CV, their whole resume. Right here, I mean, look at all that stuff. You know, me, I'm still, I don't have time right now for all of it. I don't say that to say that these are bad. I think it's great that they have it. It gets to a point where it's intimidating to me because, you know, do I need to fill all this stuff out? Am I a terrible GM that I don't have a little, you know, 500 words on their personal history and education, employment? But I think if that stuff comes out of the game, then I have somewhere I can enter all this stuff in. Oh, okay, employment. You know, he works. Ugh. Did I spell works wrong? Yes, I did. I'm using a keyboard that I like, but the keys aren't lit, and I'm out of practice because I've been using the laptop keyboard for a while. Let's see, works for the Viscount. So I can add in that employment. That's what he does. I don't have any achievements for him yet. I could probably add in some trauma at some point. Where's the save button? But, you know, I can add... does it save automatically? No. No. Where does it save? I don't know. Maybe it does save automatically. I don't know. I'm usually someone that's always reaching for the save button. So I can't say. In any case, there's a lot going on there, right? Let's see if I preview... Oh, save change. There it is. I would have liked if that was more prominent. Okay, so there we go. Now we see, after this little blurb, we've got a mental characteristic employees who works for the Viscount. And then I could link to the Viscount somewhere in here. I could do that. One thing that I noticed is for him, so if I come back here, and this is... Maybe it's just me. Let's see. John says, we literally have 10 plus people to do these over the frogs. Yeah, doing this solo would drive me nuts. Yeah, it's a lot of work. I totally believe it. Where's my... Type it in. I believe it. It's... yeah, it's a lot. I think if you're going to be... If you're someone who's a completionist, and I am not necessarily, but again, even I feel, whoa, a little bit intimidated, it's either going to... drive you a little bit batty because you're going to see these blanks and you're going to fill them in. But at the same time, it's got, like I said, I don't know. They have these storyteller seeds they mentioned. I think that there is some kind of almost writing structure philosophy behind the stuff they're asking you. So it does naturally prompt you to ask yourself questions, right? What is his personal history? How did he get to be in the employ of the Viscount? And if this guy was important, and I haven't decided yet if he's just going to show up here and be gone, or if he's going to recur, I could go back and fill those, and I have someone or somewhere to put this stuff. But yeah, I could see if I was trying to be categorical and thorough and go through this, it would leave me a little crazy, potentially. But that is that. And here's another guy, another NPC. A nice little picture. Again, I just have a little blurb. I don't have anything for him yet. But I find that what's nice is you know, you get in the habit, or I'm trying to, is at the end of the game or end of the session or right before, even while we're playing, they met this guy, I'm able to boom, get him entered in there and go. This actually also does have a dashboard for while you're playing where you can roll dice and you can do stuff. I haven't figured out if there's a player facing part of it. I think there probably is, but I haven't tried it. We're using Discord video, and that right now has been sufficient, so it hasn't really come up. One thing I'll say with World Anvil is a lot of this stuff, I have trouble getting around. There's either things that I'm not linking together. Let me see if I can find something. So I've set up several NPCs, those articles, but if I come here, I only have these two. And I don't remember what I did differently for them than I did for those other articles, because I think if I go back to my articles, it should... Bloop, 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 bloop. articles, it shows them as being NPCs. I think. See, RPG NPCs. So I don't know what I didn't do that I did for those other ones. It might be that I have to link or do something, but it's one of those things that's just not quite clear. I'm sure eventually I will get the hang of it, and I will be able to... Let me see if I go in here. Let's see. Does this... Because I think I did have an article for him, too. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. It doesn't look like I did. All right. So I might, maybe I created those in the wrong place and I shouldn't have created them there. But you could see they've got, I can hit this extended profile and then, oh, look at all that stuff. His skin tone, his eyes, his hair, his height, his weight. Quick profile, NPC basics. So here again, all this information, right? I don't need all of it right now, but... So we already had height, weight, all that stuff. Now you get physique, body features, facial features, identifying features, physical quirks, apparel and accessories. I don't know what specialized means. Maybe skills, special abilities. I mean, you know. And then we get into mental, and then we're back to all this stuff like we had in that article. And then we get their personality. So you have so much stuff that you can add in there to give them. So maybe I need to put those other ones in that spot. Like I said, it's not super clear because in the article it lets me put NPCs, but then they're not NPCs. I think it might be a difference between the world and the campaign. And again, I'm not totally I'm not totally set yet on what is supposed to be where, right? So I had put them as articles in my world, but maybe I always have to put them as NPCs in my campaign, or I should put them as NPCs in my campaign and not have them as articles in the world, or maybe I should put different stuff. I haven't seen yet. I don't know. Let's see what else we got here. So here you can do your plotting. And I just have this guy. I just made this up because I just wanted to see what it did. Chaos in the duchies. The duchies, so in this world that we're in a little a viscounty, which is part of one of the duchy. And it's just an open world in this area I'm calling the duchies. So there's just all kinds of stuff happening there. So I just call this Chaos in the Duchies. John says to ping him tomorrow, and I'll send some folks over to give you some help. Send in the Brute Squad. I am the Brute Squad. Yeah, I need help. I need help with a whole lot of stuff. This is the least. If someone could send over people to help, I got a whole laundry list of stuff I need help with. This is probably low down on my list. I'll get there eventually. And at the rate this game is going with how many sessions I think we've missed as many sessions as we've played, and they're only an hour long. I probably have, if this campaign survives, I will have plenty of time. I just need to get I'm sure there's some videos where people have done a good job going through and created some tutorials and kind of best practices for this. I just don't know any of those are yet. I don't know the best practices. Maybe that speaks to a way that they could design it a little bit differently to not just front load all this stuff. Maybe there'd be maybe a good excuse to have a wizard, like those old Microsoft Office kind of wizard type things that kind of walk you through some steps, make things a little bit easier. I don't know, but it's good to have all the stuff there. So here's my plot title, Chaos in the Duchies. I just have a little blurb here. You know, they're beginning in employ of the Viscount as messengers, but they haven't really been taking their messaging job seriously, and that's another wrinkle in the way these sessions have gone, is they're sitting on this message that actually is of some import. But they've gone off on their own little side job. So what happens with that? I mean, and there are a lot of things that could happen. Number one, no matter what, the message isn't getting there as fast as it could get. So what are the consequences of them not being quick with the return message? Two, they could lose the message completely. I've even thought about it in the back of my mind that this witch, fairy, seer, soothsayer person might not want money as payment, but say, give me the message. Maybe the message is so intriguing that someone like that would actually consider that as a price. So that's another one. And then, of course, what's in the message and whatever in the message doesn't go back to the Viscount, but then, you know, this person gets it. What do they do with it? What are the consequences of that? And the fact that the message is lost. And, of course, if the PCs were to die, then the message would be lost. And then that would update the world to a certain degree when new PCs came in. If they, you know, if they created some new characters, they'd have to deal with the aftermath of the fact that this didn't go. You can see here, again, this is right now, particularly, there's not an adventure per se, because they're still finding their way in this open world. I mean, I could have put, I suppose that an adventure could be that message taking it back and forth. At this point, there could be an adventure which is trying to find the soothsayer, so I could update those. Obviously, I haven't done it yet since everything is blank, but here you have this whole thing where you could lay out the structure of your adventure if you have one. I do think that these are more or less made, seem to be laid out for more narrative adventures than mine. I don't know if I was going to try to lay this out in this way, what it would be. Because right now they're going back and forth. They're basically two concurrent adventures. If one adventure is taking this message, getting a reply, bringing it back, they're halfway through that adventure. They went, they got the message, they haven't brought it back yet. Then they have this other adventure, which is go find this soothsayer woman, and they found the identity of this soothsayer woman, which I guess could be the part one. Then now they're in that middle part, which is finding the soothsayer woman, and then the last part would be, or maybe the middle part would be finding out, and depending on how it goes, it could be an exchange of money for information, in which case that would be the end. It could be quest time. You don't have stuff I want, so if you want the answer to this question, do this. Or it could be, you know, something else. So there are kind of multiple adventures in here, and given that I'm a total neophyte with this, and I don't know what I'm doing with the basic interface, I'm not sure how to set that up in here to where it will make sense for me. Because obviously all this stuff, the whole point of it is to organize it so that's easy for me to come into. And I think it would be nice for other people who want to follow. And I will drop the link. I think I have here. I'll drop that link into the chat. But, you know, if you want to follow it, great. But I haven't really looked to see what the PCs can see out of all this. I think this stuff is pretty much private to the DM and people I give that kind of privilege, the behind the scenes privileges to. But, you know, you got a lot of stuff here. You got monsters, NPCs, all this wonderful things. And I should probably fill it out. So I don't know if I'm doing this right. Because, again, that's kind of the overarching thing. But I could probably drill down and split it up into other adventures. But see, you've got all kinds of images. You know, you could add in all kinds of stuff to make it really great. I'll have to look at the Frog Gods one to see what they're doing. I mean, I'm sure that one, it's a pro job. It's going to look amazing and make me feel completely inferior, since I have done just the barest possible work. But there's that part of it. I only have one map. Or do I have two maps? I have one map. So which is just this local Viscounty of Edgehope. Oh, it copied it to the clipboard. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to see it. I did this, I'm sure you could tell, using whatchamacallit, the online map making tool. I don't know why I'm spacing out on the name. I'll redo it at some point. I really was just looking to get something down on paper, so to speak, that had the main things. So essentially this area here is where they were They came out so the fairy part is going to be this woods is where they're going to have entered the fairy realm down in there. So they kind of went walking down, kind of like that, into the woods. This is obviously just kind of their local area, which is fine for now. They're not, I'm not anticipating them. I mean, the one thing when you look, your low levels, players just can't get all that far. They just have very limited movement. They don't have horses at the moment, so you can kind of control about how far they can get. All right, and this I probably should have moved over closer to this, because really, this is right here. So the scale is off. I'm starting to take apart my own work here. The scale on this is probably off, and I don't know if this. I don't think there's a grid or anything. I think I just plopped it there when really this should be kind of right there. But that's the map, and you can add more. And I think these are clickable, or that one's clickable. I hadn't added anything for this yet. I should probably go back and add that in, and then this will take you, give you a little thing. You can go read the whole article. Wham! There you go. Get a little, and I did take the time to write that up, and I probably should and could find some kind of image to throw in there. What else? Is there anything else? Now, let's see. I think I had the player characters in here, but yeah, there they are. So we got Grusty and Atreides. But since my game is kind of custom OSR, custom version OSR, I haven't really done anything. There's a way for me to make character sheets. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, so I haven't done it. So I don't think there's much in there to see. I don't know what this Manuscripts is. Open beta version of Manuscripts, the writing tool of World Anvil. With Manuscripts, you can create novels, short stories, comic books, rich media fiction. Manuscripts will help you keep your work organized while allowing you super fast access to all the information you have stored in your world. I wonder if this is, because I think they're positioning World Anvil as a product for more than just game usage. People who are writing, anybody who needs to get a world system, maybe that's for that. But that's, maybe at some point that'll be intriguing to me, but not right now. Create a character. Yeah, I haven't done any of that. There are some images. By the way, there's a lot of places with free images, and I'm not just talking about stuff like this, which is basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Public domain, in a sense, images. But like these, I just did some kind of filtering on Photoshop using some, there's a couple of, let's see if I can see, where's the big, can I see it in big? May I see it in big? No, that's not what I want to do. There we go. Things like this. And I just some kind of, I just wanted to give it something a little bit artistic, a little bit different than just flat. So I kind of took some actions in Photoshop. It's kind of watercolor and kind of splatter actions to make something a little bit more artistic. Just to, sometimes everyone uses the same kind of stock footage, so just a way to kind of mix it up. That's the file manager. I'll see studio. What's here? Yeah, see, these things I haven't really done anything with, but that's basically World Anvil, at least how I'm using it. I will definitely try to get in here and do more with it. There are these charts, which I have not done anything with. Is there anything into the campaigns that I'm not thinking? Did I write a primer? I did do these, but I'm not sure what this is. What is a primer? A primer or players? Oh, I see. Players known lore. Okay. Okay. Things that they see. Things that they see. Things that they know. Let's cast. I think I did that already. All right. That is World Anvil. Oh, you know what? I think I got it. So here's the thing with sessions. So I guess I'll show you this session because I think I wrote it up, but I didn't actually do it because I always forget. So one of the things that happens with me is you got this cool feature, right? Oh, I can have these sessions, and then I forget to start them and stop them because usually I'm in Discord. I'm not really paying attention. But if I come in here and I start this because it's saying it's upcoming even though it's already done, you get this cool dashboard here. I can write stuff in here, but I'm not sure who sees it. I can roll dice, so I can pick one of those and I'll just roll it, or I can put in a formula there. I think it follows the kind of standard, dice nomenclature. So the other day I did 10d10. I forget what that was for. Was that 67? My eyes are going. That sort of thing. There I got the heroes. I can see the NPC list, so I would have to add those too. But here's a thing where you could add a quick NPC back in there. What else we have? So here's home. I could put notes in here. Don't forget the milk. Let's see. I can find stuff in here. I'm not quite sure what I would do with that, but I could definitely pull images. It'd probably be a good idea to add. This would have been good. See, I didn't even know. See, I'm glad I'm doing this, if only because I'm seeing stuff for myself. That's the problem is when you're, or I guess for me, one of the benefits of doing these kind of streams, I end up going through and digging around all these little corners of this application that I didn't have time to really do on my own. So I didn't even notice this because I could have definitely put like the Wicker Man picture that I wanted in there and the Green Man kind of picture. I could have all dropped them in there, and maybe I still will later. But let's see, that's cool. So I got the story. I got encounters. Oh, encounters coming soon, but at least there's a placeholder for it. Got the world plots. I can manage campaign plots from there. What can I open? Oh, there's a live screen. Ooh, see, things I didn't even know. Man, I wish I had known that before. Oh, if I had known these things before. All right. And then I could finish the session. Now, maybe that's why the view report didn't work. No, it still doesn't work. Really? Something I didn't like. I don't know. There you have it. That live handout thing, that'll be cool. Maybe I'll have to use that. Though Discord's nice. I have to say, I've been running this thing in Discord, just using video chat and Theater of the Mind. I haven't found anything that I felt like was missing yet. If I wanted to show them a picture of something like a Wicker Man, I just drop a picture of the Wicker Man into the chat. Boom, they see it. I wanted to show them a picture of, a Earth Elemental. I think actually one of the other guys found, like, oh, you summon an Earth Elemental. Here's this picture of what they look like. Bam, drop it in there. That's what it looks like. Really handy. I forget the name of the die roller that I'm using. It's a free, bot to roll dice. Works totally fine for my purposes. I have to say, I don't miss having a more complicated virtual tabletop. I'm not going to say that having Roll20 with access to, really maps and a lot of those macros and things wouldn't be fun. But there's a lot of work involved. So I saw somebody on Reddit mention that they were, how hard is it to get the dynamic lighting, which seems really cool, to work in Roll20. And apparently there's quite a bit of work involved in getting that dynamic lighting to work. And it's a nice feature to have, but you have to put in a lot of extra effort to get it to go. And I don't I don't necessarily have the time or the inclination to want to spend a bunch of the time I do have setting up my map for dynamic lighting. I think there's a lot of time. You can see all the stuff I could fill in on World Anvil. I think when I look at the time I have and where I want to spend it, I would much rather spend it on doing prep and coming up with ideas, generating things like that, than spending time just to get a feature like dynamic lighting to work. Yeah, it says, John mentions dynamic light is amazing, but it's 75% of the prep work in VTTs. Yeah, I don't want to spend 75% of the work. And the other thing is, I haven't really figured this out yet. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with battle maps. There's a lot of cool people making a lot of cool battle maps, but they tend to all follow a very similar formula. And so the formula seems to be, you've got a central feature. That's kind of the hook of the battle map. It could be anything. It could be a lava river, maybe. Or it could be a giant, the skull of a titan or something, right? And it's going to sit in the space, and that's going to be that kind of point of interest. And essentially the battle map is kind of there really to feature that thing. So you see this, the battle map and the river of lava will go across the middle, and there may be a one or two, maybe there'll be a bridge going over one part, and there'll be maybe some stones you could hop across on another, and that's it. And for the inspirational part, that's fine. And maybe for me, I would see one of those and think, "Ooh, that's a great idea," right? And that becomes something that I look at, or that becomes the genesis for an encounter. Instead of, I'm going to look at it and say, "Oh, I have this. I saw a cool battle map with a skull of a titan, so I'm going to throw that in somewhere, the skull of a titan." And that's fine. That's great. But since I lean so heavily on, random encounters and kind of sandbox play and whatever, I can't count on them getting to these places. Like, I need generic maps. I don't need, maybe I need lava, but I don't necessarily, the encounter's not necessarily going to take place in one where lava is going straight across the middle in this one spot. Or, these other very things. And it seems like that they're very specific. The battle maps are kind of very specific. They're either going to be made for a particular, campaign or dungeon, which is great, or they're made with this very artistic style, but which is also very specific. And then I guess the idea is that I'm supposed to then build my encounter around the battle map as opposed to building the battle map around my encounter. Now, I have really not used Roll20. I haven't used Fantasy Grounds. I know there are icons and tokens, and maybe there are things you can get that's just like, I just need a forest. And then I want to put stuff in that forest quickly to make it what I want it to be. All right, so there's a forest, and okay, I want to put path over here and stream over here. You can do that. I don't know. I haven't tried it, but it seems like there's a weird sort of thing there where the battle map seemed very much to be kind of in the wrong spot. It's almost like you're the battle map, and then you make the encounter to fit the battle map, as opposed to having an encounter that you need and getting the battle. And then what do you do when, like here, I had this random encounter where I needed maybe a little bit of forest, these kind of low hills, a path, and then, this campsite that they had, and I was going to have these gnolls and then the party. And if they decided to jump out and fight, and now the way it worked out is I was able to end one session on the cliffhanger of these creatures showing up, and then I would have had a week or more than a week to find a battle map or make one myself to fit. But if that encounter had happened in the middle of my game, and I'd been intent on using a battle map, I'm not sure how I would have been able to do it. I guess I would have had to just start rifling through Google and other search engines. As John said, it sounds like you need a map tiles versus whole maps. I might. There might be a system out there that will work for that. But there's so many people making battle maps. It's just an interesting space. But they're beautiful. I love them. I just don't know if they fit for me in the way I tend to do things, since I don't tend to run tons of set encounters. Maybe that's the deal. I'm just not in the... I'm not in the use case for battles. But like I was saying, we've been doing fine without them. We've 7 sessions. We've only had 2 combats. But they were able to visualize. I was able to help them visualize it. Theater of the mind. There's only 2 of them. It's not like there's a lot going on. They don't have a ton of spells yet where there's necessarily counting squares. And I'm fine with estimating and guesstimating spaces. So theater of mind so far is working great. That kind of live handout page on World Anvil will be good, will be useful for stuff when they actually get things like that to share with the party. That will be cool. But yeah, that's about that. No battle maps for me. I did reach out at one point because I wanted to try to collaborate with people to kind of do some different battle maps, but I had a hard time finding. I reached out to a couple people and didn't get much interest back. I think the people who draw battle maps are very much happy with the way that they draw battle maps and kind of I think they're really looking at it. At least one person I talked to is very much from the artistry first to, not that they're not usable, but just the main thing is the artistry of it and that being an inspirational source. And I'm kind of coming at it a little bit from the other side, which is the inspiration stuff is great, but particularly in the absence of any information. So a lot of times you get a battle map and it's just, oh, it's the skull of this thing and it's got the skull of a titan and it's half buried in the dirt and this and that, but there's no real information about it. It's really up to me to fill all that in, which if you have time is great, but maybe if you're in the moment, I almost think, do you treat it like a 1-page dungeon or something where you'd like a nice little write-up where it could say, okay, there's some magical effects that are in effect here. This pylon that I've put, that the artist has done some cool stuff to make it glow whenever. This is kind of what the pylon does, or this is what it could do. To make it easy to kind of take that map and say, okay, if I'm going to run it and I'm going to plunk it out here, make it easy for me to use without having to come up with everything. But I couldn't get anybody to bite. So maybe someone else will take that idea. Maybe some other people have already taken that idea and run with it, and I just haven't seen it yet. That would be great. But I haven't needed them so far. I have not needed them yet. So that is, that's it for battle maps. I don't know what else I got to talk about. I'm not sure if I actually... Oh, someone just sent me some maps. Har har. I will not... All right, John, a.k.a. Pex. I will check those out later. Thank you very much. I shan't check them yet. I hope these are all above board, or if they're not, don't tell me. I appreciate them. There's a lot of cool... I mean, my Facebook page, I capture tons of them from Reddit. People post all kinds of really cool battle mats to Reddit. I'm curious really what people do with them. John, have a good night. Thanks for sticking around and chatting with me, aka Pex. See you online at Tinker's Tavern and the Frog Gods Discord. Yeah, if somebody drop me a line, let me know your use case for these really cool, artistic but very specific battle maps, because I'd like to know what the workflow is. How do you use them? Do you plan your encounter? You find a really cool battle map and then you plan your encounter around it? I know another option is you could just fudge what you're doing for the encounter. So I'd mentioned that, well, I need some hills and forest and maybe a stream, and I have a battle map, and the battle map's not exactly the way I envisioned it, but you just kind of fudge it. Oh, my battery's dying. All right, well, I got to run because my camera's about to go. In fact, my camera did go. So I thought I had the plugged in charging, but it wasn't enough. So I'm in the dark, I will bid you a good day. I'll switch to that just to get some visuals on there. Yeah, my camera died. My camera died. It's just, I guess I was draining the battery longer than I was charging it. So I'll have to keep that in mind, but I've been streaming for a while, so I can't argue with that too much, but I'll have to figure that out. Anyhow, have a great night. I'm glad to finally get a stream going. I hope there's something useful for folks in there. Appreciate those of you that watch this now or later. Have a great night, and I will talk to you soon.